The Y2K Bug, the disaster that was supposed to happen on January 1st, 2000, but didn't the night the world held its breath. January 1st, 2000 as the clock approached midnight, millions of people across the United States were not celebrating. They were waiting, not for fireworks, not for countdown parties. They were waiting to see if the modern world would survive the next second. For years, warnings had circulated that something invisible but catastrophic was about to happen. Computers, it was said, would stop working. Airplanes could lose navigation systems. Banks might erase account balances. Power grids, hospitals, and even nuclear defense systems were believed to be at risk. Governments had already spent billions of dollars preparing for this moment. News channels ran constant updates. Experts debated worst-case scenarios. Ordinary people stocked up on food, water, and cash, unsure of what the morning would look like. And then midnight arrived. The clock changed. January 1st, 2000 began. Nothing happened. No crashes, no blackouts, no collapse. The world woke up as if nothing had ever been wrong. So the question remains, was the Y2K disaster nothing more than mass hysteria? Or was it a real crisis that was quietly prevented? Or quietly hidden? What exactly was the Y2K bug? To understand why the world was so afraid, we need to go back several decades, long before the year 2000 was even imaginable. In the 1960s and 1970s, computers were extremely large, extremely expensive, and extremely limited in memory. Every byte of storage mattered. Programmers were forced to make shortcuts just to keep systems running efficiently. One of those shortcuts involved how dates were stored. Instead of using 4 digits for the year, programmers stored only the last 2 digits. The year 1975 became 75. The year 1988 became 88. The year 1999 became 99. At the time, this decision seemed harmless. Most systems were never expected to run beyond a few years. No one imagined that the same code would still be running banks, hospitals, power plants, and military systems decades later. But when the year changed from 1999 to 2000, those systems would record the year as 00. And to a computer, 00 did not mean 2000. It meant 1900. This created a fundamental problem. Computers rely on dates to make decisions. When time calculations fail, logic fails. Systems that depend on sequences suddenly behave unpredictably. Bank software could calculate interest incorrectly. Expired certificates could appear valid. Maintenance schedules could be skipped. Safety systems might shut down automatically. This was not speculation. Engineers testing these systems found real failures. The flaw was deeply embedded in millions of programs worldwide. Y2K was not a rumor. It was a design flaw. How serious was the threat in the United States? The United States government did not treat Y2K as a joke. By the mid-1990s, internal assessments showed that thousands of critical systems were vulnerable. This included infrastructure that modern society could not function without. Power generation facilities depended on date-based monitoring. Hospitals relied on computerized records and equipment. Financial institutions processed trillions of dollars daily through automated systems. The government responded aggressively. Special Y2K task forces were created at the federal and state levels. Congress held hearings. Agencies were ordered to audit their systems. Contractors were hired to review and rewrite old code. Worldwide, estimates suggest that over $100 billion were spent addressing Y2K. The United States alone spent tens of billions. Behind the scenes, extraordinary preparations were made. Nuclear power plants prepared to operate under manual supervision. Military command systems were reviewed line by line. Emergency response teams were placed on standby nationwide. Hospitals prepared backup generators and paper-based record systems in case computers failed. Even the President of the United States received constant briefings. Some government officials reportedly stayed in secure locations during New Year's Eve, just in case communication systems failed. This level of preparation was not symbolic. It was defensive. The concern was not just inconvenience. It was systemic failure, public panic, and media fear. As January 1st, 2000 approached, fear moved beyond engineers and policymakers and into everyday life. Media coverage intensified. Headlines questioned whether civilization could collapse. News segments discussed possible power outages, transportation failures, and economic chaos. The uncertainty fueled anxiety. People responded quickly. ATMs saw increased withdrawals. Some supermarkets reported shortages of basic supplies. Survival kits became popular. Generators, bottled water, and canned food sold in large quantities. Certain religious and survivalist groups viewed Y2K as a sign of something much larger. To them, it was not just a technical problem, but a symbolic one. New Year's Eve of 1999 felt different. Less celebration, more anticipation. People waited not for a party, but for confirmation that the systems holding modern life together would continue to work. Midnight, January 1, 2000. The first place to enter the year 2000 was New Zealand, then Australia, then Asia. The world watched closely. If failures occurred, they would appear first in these regions. Governments and monitoring centers observed power grids, transportation systems, and communications in real time. Nothing happened. As time zones progressed westward, the same pattern repeated. Europe transitioned smoothly. Africa reported no major issues. South America followed without incident. Finally, midnight arrived in the United States. Fireworks filled the sky. Crowds celebrated. Emergency teams remained alert. And still, nothing happened. Flights continued. Banks opened. Power grids stayed operational. Hospitals functioned normally. By morning, the narrative had shifted. The media declared Y2K a false alarm. Critics accused governments of wasting money. Many people concluded that the entire threat had been exaggerated. But this conclusion overlooked a critical detail. The questions that still remain. The first question is simple. Was Y2K ever real? The answer is yes. Computer scientists, engineers, and independent audits all confirmed the bug existed. Testing revealed real failures. Systems did not behave correctly when dates rolled back to 1900. The second question is more uncomfortable. Why didn't those failures happen on January 1st, 2000? The most obvious answer is preparation. Years of work went into identifying and fixing vulnerable systems. Software was updated. Hardware was replaced. Temporary patches were applied where full fixes were impossible. But this leads to the third question. Were all systems truly fixed? Some engineers later suggested that not everything was permanently repaired. In certain cases, systems were temporarily bypassed or isolated during the date change. Other systems were monitored manually instead of relying on automation. Reports from the early 2000s documented minor Y2K-related issues occurring after the date rollover. They were small and manageable, but they did happen. This brings up the final question. Was information withheld from the public? Some government audits were never fully released. Certain insurance claims related to Y2K were sealed. Military system assessments remain classified. If nothing went wrong, transparency would have been easy. The lack of it raises curiosity. Why January 1st, 2000 was unique? Y2K was not just another technical issue. It was the first time in history that the entire world as digital systems crossed a critical threshold simultaneously. A single second affected every country, every industry, and every major institution. Time zones played a crucial role. As midnight passed around the globe, later regions had the advantage of observing what happened earlier. Some believe this allowed manual intervention if unexpected failures occurred. Whether or not that intervention was necessary remains debated. What is clear is this: the world had never faced a technological risk of that scale before. Conclusion: the real legacy of Y2K. The Y2K disaster never happened, but the fear was real. The preparation was real. The money spent was real. Y2K revealed how deeply modern society depends on invisible systems written decades ago. It showed how small design decisions can grow into global risks. It also revealed something else. The most dangerous threats are not always sudden. Sometimes they are silent, waiting patiently for the right moment. If a simple date change could cause global panic, what happens when the next hidden flaw appears? Because next time, the world may not get a warning.